Welcome back. The Democratic Republic of Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi has now taken over the helm at the African Union, where he's serving as chairman for 2021. Tshisekedi faces many challenges this year, with the COVID-19 pandemic hitting Africa's health services and economies hard. With Tshisekedi also faced with political challenges back home, can he successfully chair the African Union? Let's find out from Tapiwa Diamond Chadya, who is an Africa expert. Tapiwa, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Mr. Tshisekedi is taking over the AU chairmanship from South Africa Cyril Ramaphosa at a time of great global flux, not least due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But he's dealing with a lot of political wrangling back home in the DRC. Do you think he will be a distracted AU chair?
Thank you for having me. Look, the chairmanship position that he has taken over, look, there's a lot of issues happening back home in the DRC where he is trying to be a stand-alone person from Kabila Jr. So he has been having issues with regards to some of his leadership and the influence that he has been getting directly from Kabila. So we have seen that for now, back home, he's trying by all means to be an independent president without any influence from the former president. But the position that is taking over, the chairmanship position of the African Union, look, that position, if we look at the history of all the chairmen we have come in, it is not really a position where one is expected to do work and one is expected to have deliverables and accountability. Because when we look at the practicality of the chairmanship, it is different from the commission, because the commission would have 4 years, but the chairmanship is only 1 year. And there's absolutely nothing that a president can do in such a short period of time. But obviously, we'll wait and see what he will have to do at that position.
So safe to say then at this point that the priorities will likely be the obvious COVID-19 pandemic crisis that's affected health services, economies. We're now looking at the arrival of those vaccines that have been secured by the AU, right? But you've also got the Africa Free Trade Agreement, which now needs to begin to pick up pace.
So that is very complicated and it's brain surgery. If we just look at the issue of the Continental Free Trade Agreement, it is a spaghetti barrel, because the implementation of that is not going to be very easy. Because currently, if we look at the percentages where Africa has been trading internally within itself, we're looking at about less than 13% of African countries trading within themselves. If we do a comparison analysis with the Asian countries, they are trading within themselves at about 60, 70%, and Europe, it goes to 80, 90% of them trading within themselves. So the issues of Africa, we now put a lot of bureaucracy within Africa, and the countries in Africa has already not been trading with one another. And COVID-19 had brought an opportunity for the internal trade of Africa to go on a higher level. But unfortunately, we as Africans have failed to deal with that. Coming to the issue of COVID-19, the issue of the pandemic and the vaccines, yes, that forms part of what Tshisekedi wants to go and implement and achieve as the chairperson of the African Union. But we know one thing for sure, that the African countries, they do not have money. The health sector, the health systems, and the health infrastructure has already been struggling post-COVID-19, before COVID-19. Now that we have COVID-19, the issue of health in Africa has plummeted deeper into another sinkhole. And look, we have South Africa, which has the vaccine which it received recently. We have Egypt, we have Guinea, and it's very, very few countries who have received. Going to Zambia, Zimbabwe, and the rest of the poor, impoverished African countries, they do not have the vaccine, and it's going to pose a major and a huge challenge in the African Union and in Africa as a continent as a whole.
And Felix Tshisekedi, of course, has not been president of the DRC for very long. Apart from COVID-19 and the Africa Free Trade Agreement, there is the issue of peace and security. You've got the latest developments in Uganda, where there was the issue about the validity of the election outcome. You've got the violence in the Tigray region in Ethiopia. You've got the unending violence in the Central African Republic. Does he then, as a relatively new African president, have the diplomatic or the presidential sway and influence to sort of help or guide some of these countries in the right direction as far as ending the conflicts?
So his manifesto, look, like what you're correctly mentioning, for me, it's a world of make-believe. It's folktale. You know, like what you've already mentioned, the issue of the African free trade is going to be impossible to implement it in 1 year. The economic integration of Africa, looking at the African 2063 agenda aspirations. If we go back last year, the president of South Africa was the chairperson of the African Union. In terms of fulfilling the gun-silent Africa by 2020, the continent on its own and the leadership of the African Union and the African Commission, they failed and they did not account. Currently in 2021, the initiative that is there as one of the agenda aspirations is to go and attract more than 1 billion investors in terms of the youth, in terms of business and education. So having now Tshisekedi, the issue of security, that was ignored by the outgoing chairperson, Cyril Ramaphosa, which was happening in the country of Mozambique. Those issues, they are still ongoing. Currently, in the DRC on its own, the country has been grappling with the M23 rebels. They have not been able to have peace and stability in the country of DRC. So having sustainable democracy, sustainable peace in the country of DRC has been compounding, has been not easy. So he, first and foremost, will have to deal with the issues of rebels as well, who are in the DRC, who are in Nigeria as well. So he has got a huge mammoth task. In terms of democracy, we go into the country of Uganda, that the rest of the African community ignored once we saw that Yoweri Museveni was putting the country upside down, and the human rights violations which were directly inflicted on Bobi Wine, we saw them, but unfortunately, the African countries African leaders don't hold one another accountable. And as a result, they exchange the chairmanship positions, drink tea and coffee together, and pat one another on the back. And that is the serious and major problem that we have currently in Africa.
Tapiwa Diamond Chadya, an expert on African affairs, thank you so much for speaking to us tonight.